All right. So as we were talking right before we got started, I kind of gave you an idea of what we're going to talk about. And
Yep.
you are, amongst other things, mechanical contractor, gross mechanical. So what is a mechanical contractor?
A mechanical contractor is many things. So gross mechanical has morphed over the years. This is our 65th year. I'm third generation. We are an industrial mechanical contractor. So our focus is in the power and process piping side of things. So you will see us in refineries, power plants, manufacturing facilities, those type of applications. We sort of joke around, if you see our trucks in your neighborhood, it's too late. It's gone to pot at that point.
Everyone's fucked.
It's most likely like a sewer problem. That's one of our clients, is like the Metropolitan Sewer District of St. Louis. It's that type of work typically. It's nothing fancy. It's usually like in the ditches kind of stuff that way. A typical mechanical contractor, and we do have another business, Pipe and Duct Systems. It's actually my wife's company. Their focus is vastly different. It's more a commercial HVAC, plumbing, and then they have a full service department as well too, where a commercial space, whether it's up and down Ladue Road or like in our neighborhoods around here, Schnucks Markets, that's one of their clients.
Yeah.
They have a problem with, right now it's 0 degrees outside, then, stuff's just not working flat out right now. They get calls constantly, and we've got service technicians, 20-something of them running around town right now, just trying to keep up with everything, all the equipment on top of roofs.
Have pipes just been blowing up left and right now?
Yes,
4 degrees.
It has, but it's also the equipment. A lot of clients they try to scoot by and not take care of the stuff, and then you've got these rooftop units that are, clogged up, and, they're trying to sneak by on, saving a few bucks on maintenance, and then when it's,
Sure.
It's gasping for air when it's 0 degrees outside. You just can't do it. So, yeah. And then 6 months from now, it's going to be 110 degrees outside, and it's the opposite problem. And, the same client sitting here like, why is my stuff not working? And you're like, it's because you skipped the maintenance in the springtime. It's now we've got pollen over everything. And so
it's literally, this town has 100-degree swing.
Right. So
that's insane.
One of our clients is the 5th largest refinery over in the country. It's over in Wood River, Illinois, next to Alton there. And they have told us it is the harshest overall environment in all of their assets because, just like you said, wintertime, you've got temperatures at, wind chill, what was it this week? Minus 20, 30, something like that, wind chill. Yeah. And then the delta, when it springs all the way up to, heat index of 120, you've got a delta there of over 130, 140 degrees between the spread.
It gets so hot here. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, or like in the summertime when it's just like on you. Have you ever gotten in your car? It's been so hot you've gotten the chills. Has that ever happened to you before?
As I get older,
I go out less.
100%. I'm like the old guy all of a sudden. I'm like, exactly.
Yeah, we're not going to shovel the walk. It'll melt eventually.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is typically true. Usually it's like 20 degrees, 60 degrees, because like we're right on the interface.
Yep, it's always that transition zone. Yeah.
So you guys are basically, well, I guess you hear certain terms in the metals industry thrown around, which is they're fabricators or they're mechanical contractors. Right. It's a job shop. They're constructors. So just trying to kind of pull that apart for people, because I'm not certain I exactly know.
Yep.
Meaning, I think that they're terms that are used somewhat loosely.
Yep.
So I guess just starting like,
now
I'm thinking fabricators work at mechanical contractors.
So, and you've been to we do have a fabrication shop here in St. Louis. It's actually one of the largest ones in St. Louis. This is on the gross mechanical side, where we do quite a bit of pipe fabrication, where we do buy, singles and double randoms, pieces of pipe, 20, 40-foot lengths of pieces of pipe, and we cut them up, per the drawings that we receive from our clients, and then we ship them out to, whether it's to our guys in the field or to a third-party installer, on different parts of the country in some cases. And yes, we do that aspect of it as well too. So
I think, sorry to interrupt, but other terms that are used loosely, doubles and singles, right?
Probably
30
need to define
people.
that. Yeah,
You have 30 different answers.
Yes, that is true too.
Especially when it comes time to invoicing.
Yep.
But anyway, so fabricators, you guys do the sub-assemblies for maybe a larger system.
Correct.
That's being built. You'll get whatever you can on a flatbed or whatever it is.
And this is a problem when I put like a job posting out there and somebody comes in, they're like, well, what are you looking for? And I'm like, if you don't have experience in this, like the training level is like, it's not a couple of days or weeks. This takes like months and months of like on the job training. Like I was on a walk, I was looking at a project to like estimate it at one point. And I distinctly remember there was a long-term veteran, I had a competitor, and we're walking through this project site, and he made some comment. And mind you, this guy's been around for like 20 plus years. Like he made a comment that he didn't understand like what the pipe thickness was, what the difference was between like, and I know we're getting into the minutia of it, between like
I live there. It's cool.
A large diameter piece of pipe between standard wall and Schedule 40, because there is a difference when you get above a certain diameter pipe. And his mind was just like, all
like, I'm out.
And I'm like,
here's your gross mechanical shirt.
And I'm like a newbie at this thing, but I've been looking at drawings in our office for like 5 years, like studying all this stuff. And my dad's been like drilling it into me, no, you got to know this. You got to know this. You got to know this.
Yeah. True 40. A little pipe humor.
Yeah. And,
that can get expensive.
Oh, and if you mess up, oh my God. Yeah. You're talking, twice the weight. And, it's, as far as this stuff goes, that's a lot of how this stuff gets priced up.
Yeah.
And, And so this guy, more or less, kind of embarrassed himself a little bit in front of the client. And I'm sitting here like, well, I'm not going to do that, and but this guy, I don't even know if he realized, that he embarrassed himself at the time necessarily, but I'm like, well, you price it up your way, I'm going to price it up my way, and we'll see who wins this thing at the end of the day too.
Okay, so you were competing against this guy,
yeah,
and
definitely.
he had it worked up the wrong way, effectively.
He was headed down that pathway for sure. Yes,
Go as far as you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So you've got fabricators, and so they're the welding, cutting, bevel, getting everything fitted up and and welded together. And you guys do like the world of 3D printing. Is that getting into fabricating? Like, where do you see what's going on there?
There is a place for it down the road. I know they're doing houses, with that kind of situation, like that type of thing. On the process and power side of what we do piping wise, it's just not there yet, and it's a ways. I don't think I'll see it in my career necessarily.
Hope not.
Well, no, I mean we're looking at right now. I'm looking at a robotic welding machine. It's a $600,000+ investment.
Oh wow,
us,
okay.
So this is like real. Okay, like what's the ROI? I've got to like study this thing, and is there going to be pushback from the labor, and it's you got to really dive into this thing here.
Let's dive into that thing there, because that's a big move. Because
this is the biggest investment we'll ever make.
I mean, yes, because as we're growing up, we're seeing robotic arms swinging around at Ford, at Chevy, like at the cars.
And we work there,
now you're thinking. So you guys have kind of I have a conjunctive to that. Is that related to Mike Rowe's skill gap discussion?
Absolutely.
Which is we just can't find these guys that know how to do this.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a lot that I just asked. But so I guess what got you there?
Yep.
And I'm assuming it's going to come back to numbers, but it's an emotional thing as well, which we've run this way for this period of time. And oh my gosh, are we really considering this?
Yeah. There's several factors to it. Welding by itself is a bit of a dangerous situation. You've got fumes, you've got incredibly hot, you're literally sitting there in front of a 1800 degree torch all day long. it's insanely bright. Most welders, at some point, they'll tell you, oh, my eyes are gone. Then that's it for their career at that point.
Even if they've been safe.
Even if they've been safe with the right, shielding
Gear,
glasses
yeah.
and the right PPE and all that good stuff. It's at some point their eyes, typically they'll tell you that's like I can't do this anymore.
No kidding.
They got to go find some other aspect in that world of that they live in the construction space to go figure out what they're going to do.
I didn't realize
It's not everybody, but no, a lot of them will tell you it's like their eyes are gone at that point. So no, these guys, they basically break their backs literally, for
They're like
some period of time, and then,
weird positions and
oh yeah, the ergonomics of it. No, it's in the shop space, you're standing on concrete for 8, 10, 12-hour shifts, and if you've never done it, it's something else. Sitting at a desk is, I'd tell you, it's easy compared to what these guys do. It's just people look at it and they're like, oh, they're just standing around welding all day. I'm like,
you go do it.
Yeah. The skill set, they're genuinely, this is an art form. I would tell you the craftsmanship that goes into it, the training that goes into what these guys do. People have no idea the precision and the skill that these men and women, because we've got several women that work in that space for us now too, and I've actually won several bets. I've told the guys, I was like, when the women come in here, they're going to beat you guys in so many facets of this.
Pick an aspect.
In so many of the capabilities of what they're doing, in terms of, their wrist, manipulation is going to be better than you guys, and every aspect of it. It's like Rosie the Riveter back in like World War II type stuff.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the guys, they all bought me lunch when I was right about it. So that was kind of fun.
I'm sure that was pleasant for all. So you got a $600,000 ish machine.
Well, not yet. We're still in the midst of considering it at this point.
So you're considering. So you're looking at. Okay, we have. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's not as easy to hire as it once was.
So,
or is that wrong?
To a point. So we're a union operation.
Okay.
So the way our collective bargaining agreement with the union is, we basically call up and say we need 20 people. Of that mix, we need 7 welders, we need 3 fitters, and 10 others, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
For the project. And their obligation is to go out and find those people for us and send them to us. But look, the reality is right now they're having trouble finding those people. Right now over at Pipe and Duct, our goal is right now is to add another 5 service technicians to our ranks, to our numbers this year. I don't know if the union hall is going to be able to do that for us.
Okay.
So we're actively out there, recruiting every which way we can. We've basically got like referral fees for our staff and for our friends and family, to go out there. I put out on a golf club of mine that I'm friendly and on our Slack channel. I was like,
you did. Okay.
If anybody knows anybody looking to get into trades, look, these guys are making $200,000 a year on their check and their benefits. This is a real deal. You serve an apprenticeship, with the union. It's like the college path, it's not for everybody, and
it was barely for me, got through it.
I got kicked in the teeth a few days, while I was in my 4 years, and but yeah, no, I know there's been a lot of, recently it seems like there's been a lot more efforts towards, conversation towards, is college the right need for everybody? And this is something I've been sort of preaching for 20 plus years now.
Yeah.
Not just for self-serving reasons, but it's, I think this is a real conversation. I've got friends that went to college and then social work school and came out as, $50,000 a year, job with $600,000 in debt. And I'm like,
it's the debt.
You are going to be 230 years old before your debt is paid off.
Yeah.
With this number.
You come out indentured.
Yeah. Forever and forever.
Yeah. And how do you get out ahead of that?
Right. Or you go into the trades, and I'm not going to tell you everybody's going to make that kind of number. This is a highly skilled set of workers we're talking about. This is like top of the class, if you will. These guys are not pushing a broom.
Right.
So, okay. So there's a wide spread between the labor forces in that regard. But if you position yourself the right way, and look, our service technicians, those guys work a lot of overtime. I mean,
these are the guys going out to a site and working on something that's,
yeah. Again, like
improvements, maintenance, whatever.
Yeah, whatever maintenance is needed, especially like this time of the weather, is stuff is breaking, and we get a call at 4:00, and hey, Bob, can you, I know you just went home, but we need you to go work another shift, essentially, and it's all overtime at that point for Bob to
good
go
news
out
and
there.
bad news.
Yeah, and most of these guys just soak it up. When the call comes, it's. I'll go do that. These guys respond to it. They understand, and when the time comes, they answer the bell.
So when it comes to the welding, and you've got this robotic welder, I guess the phrasing's wrong, but there could be like sort of commodity weld patterns, things that are are not compounded. Maybe this can do compound type of things, but. This is sort of knockout, sort of the line pipe situation, or is this for more intricate parts?
So the ones up until now have really been what you described as a commodity. Like they would do the same configuration over and over and over again, which is why we've never really looked at it before, because we rarely see the same configuration over and over again. It's very, very rare. A lot of times our stuff is call it a custom design. Every client's got their own, unique pattern or something like that. And we have got one project we're looking at right now where the pipe's not even straight. They want a slope built into it for drainage purposes. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, most clients, they want everything plumb square and, down to the gnat's ass where it is dead solid perfect. This guy wants 1/4 inch slope over, 12 feet or something like that.
How do you do that? Working on that?
No, it's actually not that bad. These guys, we've got some laser transits in our shop set up. This is not the first time we've run into this. It's actually somewhat, I wouldn't say common, but we do run into this often enough. We've got laser transits.
Oh, so you're not actually creating, like, the pipe's not going to actually be dropping. You're going to mount it.
So when they set it up, they'll actually kick the fit up of the flange to the pipe and let it run down that way.
Okay.
And so the flange will be square, but then when they do the fit up, the pipe will actually be miter cut to that, and then
couple degrees,
that'll be what rolls it down that way.
It's funny. You got to get you have equipment you use to make it crooked.
Yep.
It's like it seems like human nature. You just put the shit up there and weld it up, and it would just handle itself.
You know what? And the goofy part of it is and we're not going to be doing in the installation. All this stuff is shipping out to California if we're awarded this project. We're assuming that the engineer, whatever this is sitting on, whether it's structural steel or some kind of a building mount or something like that, I hope to God the guy, is accurate with what this is sitting on. Because if it's not sloped properly or if it's level, that slope doesn't mean anything if we build it that way too then. The pipe can be sloped, but if it's sitting on something that's level, it doesn't really matter at that point.
Check your soil.
Right. Because that's yeah. I mean, California is not exactly known for stability these days.
Are you nervous would you be nervous doing a project into California as far as if there's any sort of hiccup in the finance supply chain? Is it hard to I don't know.
Nah, I mean, this is for Fluor, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm not worried about that.
Those guys.
No, these guys, and we've got a track record working for them in the past.
Yeah, it's that is that's a serious group.
They've got some firepower. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I think I was at Fluor. Is Bechtel out there?
Bechtel's based out of, I think, San Francisco, somewhere in California for sure.
That was at one of those
and
places.
They're still privately held, which is frightening to think of.
I was out at one of those places, and they had models and stuff of the stuff they'd built over the years.
It's impressive.
I was just like, this is like half this shit should be in the Smithsonian because these are really iconic things that have been built right here.
Yeah.
But
you're correct.
So what's your ETA on, I mean, how far into the robotic arm decision-making process? Is this something you guys are kind of there thinking to do it?
I've been on the fence on this thing for far too long.
Is that years?
I started looking at this probably about 2 years or so ago, and we've got a couple of projects that can kind of justify it, if you will.
Yeah.
It's just, part of the problem what we realized is some of the prep work that is involved to get the pipe and the fittings to the point where it's ready to be welded out. Mm-hmm. There's several steps before. You don't just start welding stuff. There's, other things that have to occur.
Sure, yeah.
Our prep areas aren't really like we have to go and redo all of that before we can start using this equipment. And that now this $600,000 piece of equipment, we got to go spend $300,000 getting all the other stuff ready. And I'm like,
yeah, that's the 300K you know about.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like not Pandora's box, but at the same time, you're kind of like, all right, yeah, like what we've been doing kind of works pretty good too. So,
right. Like, do we need to take this bite?
Right. But at the same time, the other part that's really intriguing aspect of the robotics too is the safety aspect of it too.
Yeah.
The welder, because it is still there's still a person involved with it, stands 10, 15 foot away from the point of where the welding occurs. So he or she is not standing in the fume, in basically inhaling that product, byproduct, not near the heat, not near the arc flash, and getting hit with all that stuff, if you will.
It's like watching your food from the outside of the microwave.
That's a good analogy.
Thank you.
So from a safety aspect, there is a big win for our people that way too.
Yeah.
Which is, that's front and center for us every day, of course, too. I like to, I grew up in our fab shop, from the time I was 16, I was working for the business whenever I had a summer break, winter break kind of thing. And this is my extended family, these people.
Sure.
So, I grew up with them. These are like my cousins in some cases, a lot of times I walk through the floor. I know these people's, name and, what they're doing. And, it's
whole
like
family.
being able to shoot the shit with them or whatever it is, that way too.
Really common, in that, especially in supply chain businesses, because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because the shit hits the fan so often that you're in these high pressure situations a lot. I was in distribution, as you know, and it seems like every other day is, 4 alarms are going off, and you're really sort of working with these people often to deal with a real problem. Like the truck just rolled over, or, it's stuck down at the port and the person's yelling at you, they need it now. And there's always something, and there's real closeness because everyone over time will bail the other teammate out at some point.
Yeah.
They've been like, just came through in such a major way that you really do get close. And then there are moments of volatility as well, just to be clear.
That is true. I've been called out a few times.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't your fault.
Well, the circumstances are what they are.
So quickly, as we're talking about this, had you not grown up around the shop, and had you not decided that you had this unquenchable love for fabrication, mechanical contracting, what would you be doing?
It's a great question. And as an 18-year-old floating in the wind, man, I probably would have made every dumb decision possible and maybe figured it out on my own. I don't know.
Would I be talking to Dr. Gross?
No,
right now?
No. I was not that good of a student. I don't think I would have gone through the engineering education that I did through college, first of all. I joke around like that's like a genetic disorder in my family. My grandfather, my dad, 2 of my brothers, myself, like I don't use the degree. Like we deal with engineers every day, so it kind of like levels the playing field in some regards.
Yeah.
And it does give you a problem solving, mindset. There is a aspect of that, but whether a business degree or finance or construction management degree versus the engineering degree for what we do, I think there's probably more value in those per se. I probably still would have wound up in construction. I think at the end of the day, construction is a wildly vast field that so many people wind up in.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, I don't know if it would have been like in the piping mechanical space necessarily at that point.
Right, yeah.
And there was, my father and I'm the eldest of my brothers, and my dad and I had very serious conversations of me even joining the business. His thought was maybe
I did this so you don't have to type
no,
of thing?
No. It's actually the opposite. Like, he thought maybe like instead of having the inbred education that we've now basically have had for 3 generations, it's like, hey, maybe we should go outside and
seek some knowledge,
see what else is going on in the world.
It's probably nothing, but
right. Well, my dad did some really great stuff over the years, but at the same time, he was basically a one-person situation.
Sure.
I do think we have limited ourselves as a company, by trying to do everything as what our family is capable of, to some degree. And, my brothers that have been in the business, some of them have exited now, very bright and very capable. But, we've never really had a lot of outside influence until recently, so we're trying to do things differently now than we've ever done before. And it's, especially with pipe and duct, that's a very different space. Like, I joke around, the commercial space. It's like, okay, I can find the thermostat on the wall here, but I don't know like HVAC like I do piping.
Right.
You put me in a power plant, and I know where I'm going to go find the superheater and all the other heavy equipment and the soot blowers and stuff like that. And most people listening to this, they're like, what the hell is that guy talking about?
Some of the people in the interview are wondering what you're talking about. Superheater sounds pretty hot.
It's just a very niche-y little space that most people just don't live in, unless it's a very small space. So yeah, getting back to your original question, I probably still would have been construction. I think I still have always liked, taking things apart, building things to some degree, that way.
You would have founded a place like Gross Mechanical.
Again, something probably along those lines.
Something along those lines?
Yeah. So,
well, switching gears with you, you've maybe heard about this ongoing discussion about artificial intelligence and AI and these other technologies. And I actually lump Bryzos into these technologies.
I would agree.
Of just the instant nature of things. It's getting, like ourselves, like getting so accurate, so fast, and so reliable that these tools, and take any industry really, are becoming so sophisticated that they can't be ignored.
Yep.
Like the robot you're talking about, especially I think in the wake of COVID in particular, which is there's been sort of this reset of thinking, and I can't put my finger on it because a lot of people in the metals industry didn't go home. A lot of them worked, so it's not like we had that going on.
Nope, I agree.
But something did change, and perhaps one of the things that it did is it really shined a light on kind of the skills gap that we're talking about. Because afterwards, it was like, where's everybody? Yeah. But so we have sort of this roll up occurring of technologies all moving. And what do you see? I mean, I've been down to your shop, and you and I have spent time together, and you have sort of a spectrum of technologies going on. Some things you still really like to have your hands on, and some things you're like, we're going to program that thing and let it run. Do you foresee a time where kind of, things are being drawn in CAD, and then it's auto everything, and you're just sort of being like, yeah, it looks good, and the need for people is greatly reduced. But what is sort of your vision? Take me 5 years out. What do you think, like, your shop, maybe not your shop, but shops in general might look like? What AI do you think they're leveraging, or tools? Just kind of give me a sense of what you think that might look like.
So we're starting to see it in the office side already, like the estimating aspect of things. A lot of times what our clients will do is send us over a set of drawings and a specification book, and basically, hey, how much is this going to cost? How long is it going to take? When can you get started?
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes this takes.
You're like, is this a bid or a buy?
In your world, exactly. And look, historically speaking, on the industrial stuff, now that I've experienced like what pipe and duct does on the commercial side, on the industrial stuff, a guy can spend 2 or 3 weeks in some cases looking this over. I mean, we can spend 100, 200 man hours
doing a takeoff kind of deal,
just looking it over, making sure we've got all the details covered before we go to turn a bid in.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got thousands and thousands of dollars invested for something we may not even get a chance at working on.
Yeah.
And we do hundreds of bids a year like that. Now, not all of them are, 3 weeks, of course. Some of them are, a couple hours, maybe a couple days, whatever it might be. But like right now, we've got one that's massively challenging to turn a bid in. Like we've got a month to work on it, I guess.
Wow.
So, yeah. But there's a program that we're considering that is basically an AI software that it scans all the drawings and it does its manipulations and basically tells you, it's like, this drawing has 800 feet of 8-inch pipe and so many 90s.
So it breaks out a bill of material for you?
It generates a bill of material for you.
And that's from, like, you get sent a stack of PDF or something, so you can, instead of getting like the CAD file, if that's not being furnished,
right,
you can sort of reverse CAD this thing.
The clients are so guarded against handing out a CAD file. We never see those, essentially.
Why is that?
I don't think we've ever had a straight answer, but basically, like, one guy.
We don't want to?
Yeah, they're basically like, oh, you guys are going to like manipulate it, and then we're going to have you guys are going to come back and say like it wasn't, the drawing was changed or something like that. And I'm like this is, you guys have control over the contract documents. Like, this is a silly argument. Just, if you guys work with us, like, we can lower our costs and pass that along to you at the end of the day. And this was with a long-time client, like, that we have a master service agreement with. Like, I'm like, you guys, like, if you partner with us, which you're supposed to, like, we lower our costs and then we pass that along. Like, that's how this whole thing works. Yeah. And you can't convince them of that half the time, most of the time. So.
Well, I believe that. I think that there's, I'm interrupting, but that these faster technologies carry with them sort of, there's a fear that you're handing over the keys to the kingdom in some way.
Yeah.
And part of the objective, if you're the owner of Gross Mechanical or otherwise, is to try and find the good ones. Meet the owners of the technologies and, find the one that's from the industry, one that understands the sensitivities and so forth. So you'll be able to, you envision being able to really fast track the takeoff, get into a quote. I mean, and get it handed back to them much quicker.
And even we've been generating basically the same proposal. It's a form letter essentially for years and years. And, we've started looking at like what the different AI software programs, can generate as far as a proposal goes. And they're actually pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, we could learn something from that thing.
It's pretty nice.
Well, it's the things we talk about here is that, at some point, people are going to start to really value their time. Once the tools are on par with what they can do, or perhaps in some case an improvement, and then you compare that to the time, and you're like, how can I maybe this gets me 90% of the way there.
Yeah.
I'm okay spending the 10% manually or whatever it is.
In terms of the labor aspect, though,
Yeah.
we still have a ways to go before I think we're going to feel the impact there. You know, the engineering side of things, which we really don't get involved in. I kind of alluded to that before. Like, despite my degree, we don't offer that service in-house.
Yeah.
Like when we need to do some design aspect for a project, we've got partners that we hire and they do the engineering, for our client, and then, we pay them to do that service.
Yeah. I mean, designing it and building it. I mean, that's two layers of risk and liability.
Yeah. Right. But, we have for instance, we have a 3D scanner.
Okay.
And we can basically, it looks like one of your cameras, basically just like what you have pointed here. It's on a tripod. It goes in, and it spins around and it gathers billions of data points. It's not AI, I know this, but it's pretty slick technology that we've used in several cases where we can then go use that data, collect it, and generate the information we need to then go fabricate pipe off of that and do a proper installation from there.
So you'll go to the site and get exact measurements.
Correct. Rather than two guys with tape measures and laser transits, spending days or weeks trying to lay everything out. So the technology, it's not AI, but embracing the technology to not necessarily speed things up, but to deliver a better product at the end of the day, and do just again, between the manpower shortages and everything else, that way we just have to be able to respond quicker to our clients and adapt to get on to the next one, essentially.
I'd love for anyone that's listening, like when you're receiving material in your yard, if there would just be this giant conveyor belt, I'm sure this exists, just unload the truck right onto it.
Yep.
And it scans everything that goes into the building and gives you a report of the heat numbers, the diameters,
you're talking my
the
love
wall
language
thicknesses,
right now.
the actual degree of the bevels that are on there. If you have flanges, what sort of flange face damage is there? Is it have the record finish on it, or just all of the specs? So the computer knows the specs of WPB or whatever it is, A105, and you put that stuff and it recognizes your order.
Yep.
And it's scanning the shit out of this. And by the time it gets to the other side, it's just a printout of like, okay, here, put this shit. The conveyor belt goes right back to the truck. Yep. They pull forward, and the stuff that doesn't pass just gets loaded right back onto the truck.
So it's kind of an offshoot of that. We've got one particular client talking about that 3D scanner we were just discussing.
Yeah.
When we do a fabrication spool for them, we have to scan that piece with that scanner and prove to them that it matches their drawing before we ship it out. Like
if it doesn't, would they change their drawing?
Dimensionally and orientation-wise and everything else that way. So, no,
it's actually a really good idea.
They'll reject it, and we have to then, reconfigure it or redo the piece altogether before we can ship it out.
And I guess what's sort of the way things go typically, which is, I know at times like maybe you didn't know something was perfect, but if we ship it there, they might be able to fit it up. But now they're sort of turning the table and being like, no, don't do that routine. Right.
So
fix it now.
And look, I've got to see, my background is QA. I went back and got my certified welding inspector license back in 2010, and so I've gone back and I've spent a lot of time with this, as well too. We've got some tolerances that we allow our shop to have, and pipe is rarely also straight. It's got some curvature to it. And especially when you start, introducing heat from a weld, and if you put like an OLED in the middle of a piece of pipe, suddenly that pipe is definitely not going to be straight. You got some bow to it. So there's a lot of factors that go into what this looks like, and we've got a full-time QA person on our shop floor that's documenting, like you said, all the heat numbers and all the other pertinent information depending on what the client's expectations are. For the documentation, but also like, who made the weld, and whether it required an X-ray or whatever the NDE requirements are for that particular project too. But also at the end of that spool fabrication, he's responsible to, make sure that it's within the tolerances for the lengths and the dimensions and the orientation, that we don't have a valve handle flipped around backwards, or that the support dummy, like a shoe holding up the piece of pipe on the structural, isn't on the wrong side or something like that, because
That must happen all the time.
it can.
Okay. Seems like it might.
Our crew in our shop, most of these guys and women have been in our shop for extended periods of time.
Okay.
Like these are people that show up to our shop day in and day out. This is what they do. We've had periods of time where when we first got into the fabrication side of stuff, where it was like kind of breaking things in, if you will. We had a series of this, and that was before we had like a QA person full-time in the shop. And it was kind of like, I'm not blaming the guys and, what they were doing. There's a learning curve to it, and it was kind of like, you guys, all right, we got to pay more attention to what we're doing here. Like we can't send stuff out that's incorrect. We will lose business by doing this. We've got
the whole team.
We've got to be on top of this kind of stuff. Like people are paying attention to this stuff, obviously.
Well, especially if people are throwing around words like 3D scanner and things like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like, well, you should probably be paying really close attention, because
right.
And that's something that's interesting too. Is just not your internal systems. This is the external systems going to be measuring your internal systems.
Right. Well, and there's also some aspect, when we're fabricating for ourselves, it's like, hey, if we send something out to one of our guys in the field and we had a mess up, it's like, okay, we may just kind of cover it up ourselves and take care of the fix, and no big deal. Well, big deal because we screwed something up and we got to take care of it. But it doesn't.
We'll get past.
It doesn't manifest itself into a bigger problem than that necessarily.
Yeah.
But when we send something out to a third party installer, okay, like we get called out to the floor, I've got to fly out to somewhere and like be like, yeah, we screwed that up. Like that's on us. Like we got to fix that, and whether we bring it back to our shop or I got to pay the guy out in the field, which is drastically more expensive than us doing it right the first time. Like but at the same time, we're talking like less than 2% like errors. Like we keep track of this stuff, And
you got to.
And it's rarely the 2% that I'm talking about. It is rarely a orientation bust or a dimension bust. Like those happen like less than 20.25% of the time, like from what our last year's numbers are, where the combined overall, most of them we catch in the shop, we fix it before it even leaves, and that encompasses every kind of, whether it's an X-ray that doesn't pass, which is super low in our shop, or it's an orientation situation. Like it's kind of an all-inclusive metric that we keep track of. That's below that 2%. But again, what leaves the shop that is missed is also incredibly low. That 2% is inclusive of everything. So we probably should break it out in terms of what we find outside of the shop, but that's a little trickier to manage. So.
Well, yeah, once thing leaves the shop, there's always sort of like, it wasn't like that when I left here.
Well, I also only know what I know is a problem too. That's where it kind of gets a little trickier. So it's like, if it's not reported, I can't do anything about it.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it. I was kind of laughing when you were talking about having to go on site, because I remember back in distribution, this project called for 48-inch standard.
Yep.
48-inch standard elbows.
Okay.
And maybe they were quarter wall. They were insanely thin.
Yeah.
And we got a call. We got a place out in Salt Lake, and they were like, you got to come out here and look at these fucking fittings that you guys shipped us, because they are not round. They're square.
I was going to say they probably didn't hold up real well.
I guess they had been like the bottom of the vessel. They were import. Maybe they were in the bottom of the vessel.
And no bracing on the inside or anything.
They literally had the bracing marks, how that can happen, So these things are sort of kinked.
Yeah.
And it was just like, the only place you could use these is maybe now at a playground.
Yeah.
These things are basically useless.
Yeah.
But that was another fun trip as part of being a member of the metals community.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as we're sort of closing out, I'm going to turn attention towards something that actually just heard the other night, and I've mentioned we're talking about it briefly, which is we have a new administration that is just taken office and has been busy doing various things, and
It does seem that way.
and I heard the idea of declassifying, which they've been talking about for a long time, declassifying RFK, JFK, MLK Jr., all this, and like, what are your thoughts if they really do that? Like, is that something that you think that should just be turned out in the wild, or what are your thoughts?
Boy, I think this is where I get in trouble.
That's all right.
No, I know. Yeah, end of the call.
It's a double-edged sword.
I think people are going to be skeptical.
Don't think it's bullshit?
Yeah, I think half the country's going to be like, oh, they don't trust this coming out of. They wouldn't trust it if it came out of the last administration, and the other half isn't going to believe it because it came out of this administration.
Right.
I'm pretty much down the middle.
I've sort of lived there as well.
So I think you're going to have skeptics on both sides of this, whatever comes out of it. And my guess is when it comes out, it's going to be so much heavily redacted, Sharpie markers.
It's going to be so redacted. It's going to be so scrubbed.
You're not going to be able to make heads or tails of it anyways.
It's going to be probably the equivalent of the Zapruder film, which is going to be like everything, and then the moment is completely blocked.
Gone.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to occur.
It's going to raise more questions or theories than we probably already have, in terms of the JFK aspect of it. I think the other ones are a little bit more cut and dried, but, the JFK one still, how many theories are there? Hundreds at this point, probably?
I know of a couple, but, I follow that stuff, but they do sort of meld over time.
Yeah.
When you kind of tune in, tune out to sorts of things. But I was hearing them discuss it, and I was like, if you for real just throw an unredacted document out there.
Yeah. And to be honest, like, now that we're talking about it though, like, and I think you and I are about the same age, late 40s.
Yeah, 35, yeah.
Well, no,
47.
But bring that up, a 35-year-old, I don't know if they care. I'm not pointing a finger at them. I just think it's a bit of a generational thing. Like, I remember going to the theater and watching JFK, the Oliver Stone movie.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like a big deal, I feel like. But I don't know if that still resonates at this point. I feel like we may be on the younger end of things that pays attention to it, maybe. I feel like that's more like our parents' generation.
Yeah, and I think for a while, I don't know.
And I don't know if my parents at this point, I don't know if they really
think they're over it.
Yeah.
My mom.
I don't think it's gonna like, they're gonna suddenly get active, because of it or something like that.
Okay, so you think that would get their dander up to. Yeah, but I remember my dad saying a long time ago, he was like, I remember exactly where I was when JFK got shot. I heard my mom say that separately. And, I think that
it's a memory for them, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to suddenly like create this patriotism or I don't know whatever.
I don't see my mom crawling up in a bell tower or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think she's probably past that.
Right.
Worst case scenario, she finds somebody.
Yeah.
But that's kind of all that I really had in my mind as far as like, I just want to get a sense of what you guys are doing. And so are you guys busy quoting right now? Are you guys busy building right now? What is kind of in closing? Are you guys?
We're busy every which way.
Are you?
We've got calls out, job postings for estimators, project managers, service techs right now like crazy. It used to be a couple of years ago I couldn't find service techs and I couldn't buy trucks. There's a shortage. You couldn't go to the dealerships and buy trucks.
Oh yeah, I mean,
so
that makes sense.
yeah, the parts and the
chips.
Yeah, the chips that they were missing. So
yeah, that's
now
kind of a big
I
deal.
can go. Like we met with one of the local dealerships today. Like trucks are not a problem, but like finding the manpower to go around town.
You need those to align.
Right. And yeah, like we're coming up with strategies right now in terms of like where we go find these people. And the headhunters, that's a pathway, but it's not ideal necessarily. But
Headhunters are a path, but you know what? It's like after you do all the rigmarole,
I know
you end up hiring that guy's friend.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
It's so much better when you can go that pathway. And that's where we've had our best success for sure. But that is right now, like we're definitely in this pretty heavy growth phase right now in several fronts on really both companies in some regards. And that's because of the great people we've been able to bring on board in the last, 6, 8, 10 months at this point. And it's an exciting place to be at both companies right now. It's great. It's really fun.
I would say that about the metals industry in general. And I think you're going to see a huge switch in the metals industry. I call it like people have this vision of how rusty, dusty the metals industry is. But,
yeah,
I don't really believe that. I mean, I think that the metals industry is highly discerning about how they spend their money,
yes.
right? Which is they're not going to get a piece of technology just because. Yeah. They need to draw a line between the investment and the return, and it's nearly that simple. But I think especially what we're trying to do, and I've said people around in the Bryzosphere have heard me say, like, I want to create a world for the metals industry where people look at the technologies and how considerate the technologies are, right? Like, they look at their job and they're like, I actually want to go I can't believe this. I want to go be in the metals industry.
Yeah.
Because they got all these robots and shit going on. And the people there and you touched on it earlier, like the family aspect of the industry is crazy. And it's really fabulous. And I think that the technologies that are emerging primarily from within the industries are really being mindful of the dynamics that the people in the industry want. Like, they don't want a technology that's going to come decimate their family. They want something that's going to work and really complement what that group is doing. Yeah. And we hear people be like, well, what if we use, Bryzos and this, that, and the other? And they're like, what are we going to do with, so-and-so and purchasing, so-and-so, selling? I'm like, well, you would be the first company in the metals industry that's properly staffed, meaning that I'd be willing to bet that person has more they're not doing than what they are doing.
Well, yeah.
And so it's not a binary proposition. It's about being choosy. Like, what do you bring into your world?
Yeah. Well, there's that expression, you're working in the business or you're working on the business. And that probably applies to that aspect of it to some degree, I would think also. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of industries that have kind of been ignored for a long period of time. It's not attractive to do this, that, or whatever. And I would probably lump construction and the metals industry kind of as that. And I think there's a bit of a changing of the tide there for, several reasons. Look, we touched on it earlier before. The money's really damn good.
Yep.
The hurdle to the access to it is fairly low, in regards. The opportunities are everywhere right now. Like I said, the manpower shortage is widely known. So,
yeah,
if you're interested and you've got some amount of drive and a commitment to it, we'll find a place for you. We'll figure out how to get you trained in the right way and, put you to work in a meaningful way that way too. And my guess is the metals business is probably the same way. There's some training involved for it too. But, if you find the right person that's interested and engaged, that wants to learn and, figure out how to incorporate the Bryzos methods into this, man, the world's yours right now, I would tell you.
And especially using Bryzos, which is you really just need to know what you need to buy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the bar, if you will, is coming down as far as I remember when I started in the metals industry, I didn't know which way was up for, an extended period of time.
There's so many options and variables. It's unbelievable. Like the amount of noise you have to sort through. Like,
yeah.
I've been doing this for 30 years, and there's probably still stuff like every couple of whatever is like,
I didn't know that could happen.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing how many different ways the same thing can get messed up.
Yeah.
And I always remember this time I think we shipped something that was supposed to go to Houston and it ended up in South Korea or something like that. And we said, keep it.
Keep it.
Don't worry about it. We'll get another piece cut or something like that. But I think that spending, part of the problem is it takes a year and a half, in my opinion, to really understand what you're doing in this industry.
I would agree.
And that's really just so you have some sort of baseline fluency.
Yeah.
In all the different specs, grades, DIMs, all the
this is not something you're going to learn in some school classroom.
It's kind of not.
This is on the job training, 100%.
And there's a jargon as well, right? And
well, I would argue there's 2 or 3 jargons.
Well, per product type.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
There's what you call, what the office calls it. There's what the guys in the field call it.
Yeah.
And then there's like a whole nother like subset like in between all of that stuff too. And I guarantee you, because like I see it every day. Like our guys come in from the field and they're like, they'll call in for something, and somebody in the office will be like, "What the hell are they talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're asking for this, that, and that." And they're like, "How do you know that?" I'm like,
turn the
"'Cause I've
Rosetta
been doing
Stone
this
a
for
little
30
bit.
years. That's why I know."
It's kind of like people definitely have a favorite. Like when you're talking about pipe, is it a stick?
Yep.
Is it a joint? Or is it a piece?
Yep.
Like
a length.
A length of pipe.
Yep.
And I think I say piece.
I say a stick. I use all of them interchangeably.
It might depend
just to mess with people
who you're talking to, but I think that people kind of feel strongly about that. I think there are people who are like stick people, joint people.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
And I'm one of them. Like, I didn't know you said stick. I kind of feel differently about you. Right. It kind of changes the whole thing. We might be done. But
what do you feel if I start saying SRLs?
Yes, single randoms. Which, by the way, for anyone who's not, I guess, so for anyone who's not in the industry, it needs to be known that there are these pipe lengths that are.
This is the most convoluted product in the entire history of mankind, in my opinion.
This is why it takes a year and a half, by the way.
I agree, yeah.
Because you're like, can I get 200 feet of pipe in singles? And you're like, sure.
Well, so
but 218 feet show up, and they're all different lengths.
Well, put it in my perspective, we order a single random, thinking we're getting 20 feet, and I need 20 feet, and they ship me 18 feet.
Or you want 2 singles or 18?
And I'm sitting here like, I need to order another piece of pipe. They only shipped me 18, and I ordered 20. And then they're like, well, no, we shipped you a single. And I'm like, no, but I ordered 20.
Dude.
I need 20. I need a, so literally when we write a PO, I have to like write minimum 20-foot lengths. And then the vendor's like, well, that's going to take me extra time because they have to literally go out in the yard and measure it, so it's a minimum 20-foot length.
All right, I'll have you weigh in on this.
And I'm like, I don't care. I need a minimum 20-foot length.
So when we were doing our ERP system in distribution, so we had this exact thing happen, which is we would get a purchase order from somebody. We'd then create the sales order.
Yep.
And then work order, and get down to the yard, whatever. So you'd look at the salesperson who at times could be accurate, at times be inaccurate, whatever. So they'd read it and it would say single random length on the purchase order. and then they would write, or it would say 20-foot min.
Right.
And then
That's me.
that's you. It might have been you guys. And so then the sales guy writes it up as a single.
And that's where the rub lies.
And then so there's this idea of a single 20-foot min, or if someone says I need a 21-footer.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
I'm probably ordering a double at that point.
So does it mean?
By the way, we've lost your audience completely.
That's all right. This is really in the weeds, but like, so 21-footer would be.
No. 21 footers. It's in the definition. It's in the definition of a single.
But is it between 21 feet and is it between 21 dead and less than 22?
Yeah. I mean, this is where you fall in that gray zone. You're pushing your luck. When I see that number, that's when I started being like, God dang it! Like, I'm not going to get what I need. I know I'm not going to get what I need. Like, it's a roll of the dice, and
so you'll just size up.
Yeah,
typically. Yeah. I mean, if it's even if it's
or I'll go back to the drawing and I'll be like, do I really need 21 foot, or is like somebody just overdoing it? Like, because the way the drawings are, they'll take off through the fittings, and the fittings may be 3 or 4 feet of the length of the spool.
Sure.
Okay, well, I don't need 21 feet then. I need 18 feet of pipe. Okay, well, then I'm back down in my number there, what I actually need. I don't need that 21 foot, and my estimator, was over conservative at that point, which I get why he's doing that.
Well, it causes so much trouble, like the amount of trouble 6 inches can make.
Yeah, and look, our estimators, I want them to be realistic, so we tell them to round up so that because all fall, when we're cutting pipe, there's a certain amount of waste, and you can't use up every last inch of the pipe. It's just unrealistic that way. So we round up. When the dimension shows like 4'4", I just say that's 5 foot.
Right.
That way. So we take that into account, and even at the end of an estimate, we may add another 5-6% of the length just to make sure we have it all covered. These are the little nuances. Again, a year and a half it takes. This is what it takes on our side of things, just to, know your business.
And it's really remarkable as you're learning that you can read something, read it again, look at it, and you could still have something explode, not literally, but something, a problem occur.
Yeah.
And something that you reviewed endlessly.
Oh, yeah.
And it just happens, bang, right in front of you. You're just like,
yep.
Got it.
I mean,
what's wrong with me?
My interpretation versus, somebody else's, there's going to be a little variability there. I get that, so, you try to standardize the process as much as you can, that's how we try to run our business that way. The way I do an estimate, I expect, we have a standard way we download everything into the same document, so that way when I'm reviewing the estimate, I can go to the same page and look for the same data when I'm analyzing, whoever's doing that estimate. That way we can review it, consistently that way. We're not reinventing the dang wheel every single time. But my mind would explode weekly if we had to do that. Yeah.
It'd be excessively painful week after week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hopefully the AI tool that can adjust
that would be
that
nice.
drawing.
Yeah. That would be, yeah. So that literally is one of our new project managers that started with us in December. It's the one who's really kind of been introducing us to that. He's been using it at his old firm, and he's kind of been like, "Hey, you guys should consider this." And we're like, "Oh, we've been kind of talking about that, but you know what you're doing, so why don't you demonstrate for us?"
Well, we're developing right now. This bill of material upload. That's you can take a picture of something, and it instantly will price it, right? And it's the kind of thing where it's the reason these things take a long time to develop is because you don't want it to be wrong.
Yeah. And again, all these little nuances, man, it's easy to get something just a little. You get a 3,000 pound fitting versus a 300 pound something. I mean, that's wildly different.
Oh, it's wildly different.
Yeah.
And it can, it depends on many things, but if you have something that was systemically wrong,
Right.
and this was that great deal of fabricator, somebody's like, you just got to make sure you're right.
Yep.
And so I think that, so you're talking about, you've been thinking about a decision for a year and a half or what, it's not hard to find yourself there.
Yeah.
Because like, as you said, the way we're doing things, but it does the flip side. That's what I think's happened since COVID is there's people are starting to have trust and like, okay, this is getting really good.
Yeah.
And I know my competitors are using it now, or
That is definitely the case.
and so you're like, okay, well, we need to get our act together or whatever, because if they're using it, whether if we 100% trust it or not, they're zipping these things around so fast now that we don't even get in the shot we'd like to have.
Right.
So I think that's the
at that
major
point-
impetus.
At that point, it doesn't matter if we have the biggest shop in town. We're not the most efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can pick up the sub work. You guys can go through the trouble of quoting it for us, quoting it, outsourcing a little bit.
There's an aspect of that too. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming. I'm going to get
This
us
was
out
awesome.
of here.
No,
it
this
was
is
fun
cool.
to chat. I could do it for a really long time, but
I know. And I appreciate you guys' flexibility. I know we kind of got pushed back a little bit.
it's irregardless. We're just going to make it happen.
Exactly.
So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No, this was awesome.
All right,
Thank you.
cool. Thanks.